Hi there, my name is Prakash and I'm the head of product of Xano. Today we are going to be covering the WMX stack. And if you haven't heard of that before, that is completely okay. We just made that up. But it basically means Webflow, MemberStack, and Xano all put together. And so for this example in this video, we're going to be using Webflow for our website or our front end. We're going to be using MemberStack to manage our different membership plans, manage our sign up and login, all that stuff. And then Xano, we're going to be using to sync data between all of the different services. And we're also going to be using Xano to basically display items based on the membership plan that a user has within Webflow. Very cool stuff. So just to show you an example of this working, we've used a MemberStack template and a clonable site to get started. This is the easiest way and how we recommend getting started because MemberStack sets everything up for you. So we use one of this template actually right here. And here is our working Webflow site. So before I go ahead and sign up and show you how it works, I will just go into Xano and show you how we've set things up in the backend. And we basically have three tables. We have the member table, right, which has no members currently, but it's going to be populated when I sign up. Then we have basically a plan table, and this has the two plans that I've set up in MemberStack. And then you'll see here there's a column that has items, and it basically says that when someone signs up, assign that member these specific items. And these item IDs are being fed from the item table, which is right over here, which is just basically a list of elements. There's everything from a puppy to a yacht. And depending on what membership plan you have, you'll see different things. So if I go ahead and I'll go back over here, I'll go to the member table. You'll see that nothing is here right now. I'll go ahead and sign up. So I'm going to click Get Started. I'm going to click, not sure what happened there. I'm going to click Get Started. I'm going to go ahead and put in my name, Prakash Chandran, and I'll just do prakash@email.com. And then finally, I'm just going to say password 123. I'm going to click I agree. So when I hit continue, remember, it's going to go into Xano and it's going to populate this user. But one thing that I forgot to mention, it's also going to go into Webflow and it's going to populate a CMS called members, right? And the reason that we do that is because we want to keep the members in sync with this Webflow collection, because in future tutorials, what we'll do is we'll have a member submit something back to MemberStack, and we need a unique ID to keep everything tied together. So we'll walk through that in this tutorial, but just know that you don't see any members here. You don't see any members over here. Even if I go to MemberStack, I look at members, nothing is here. So I'm going to go into my Webflow site. You can see it's on Webflow, and I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. I don't want to save the password. It brings up a test credit card page. I'm going to pay for that basic membership. So now I'm on this login page that they've created for me. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to show you in Xano that it's been created. It's not only created, it's basically assigned all of those items that were in that basic membership table. Then if I go to Webflow and if I refresh this, and then I go into the CMS, which is just here on the left, I'll see that there's one member here, right? And then finally here in MemberStack, we have the member and they've been assigned that Webflow member ID. So everything just happened to sync and work. And the cool part about it, as I said, is if I go to say, take me to basic account, it's going to show me all of this information, which is getting fed again from Xano. Again, for this user, here are the different items associated with it. Items 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then again, if I come back here, that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So very cool. And it's very cool capability that we've enabled here. So with all of that said, and if you like this example, I'll go about showing you how I set that up. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to log out of this account. So the first place that we actually want to start is here within Xano. And you can go to Xano.com and sign up for a free account. And for those of you that don't know Xano, it's the fastest way to build a backend without any code. So you can go to Xano.com and the free account will bring you to a page that looks like this. If you've already signed up for a free account and you want to reset your workspace to start from here, you can just go to settings and click reset workspace, and you'll be taken to this page. So I'm going to go ahead and press get started. I'm going to name this WMX, and I'm going to hit continue. And then here, what you will see that I'm not seeing is a WMX template. So I'm going to just pretend that I clicked on it, and then I'll fast forward to that page. Okay, so you'll be seeing something like this. And if you don't see this, you'll be taken to the dashboard, and there will be a link to get here. And you can also find it here in the marketplace. And this is the WMX Webflow MemberStack Xano template. So you're going to see this thing that says manage. So when you click manage, this template is going to ask you for three things: the Webflow API key, the Webflow member CMS collection ID, and then the MemberStack API key. The reason you need all of these keys is to tell each one of the services who you are, that you have an account with them, and that you have permission to use them. And Xano just collects all of these together, kind of basically make sure that they're all integrated so they can all talk to each other. So now that we are brought in this dialog, you're not going to have any of these things filled out. So you'll need to go get these individually. So let's start in Webflow. So when we go into Webflow, there's two things that we need. The first thing is that API key. So the way to get that, if you've never done that before, is you go into your project settings, and then you click here in integrations, and you scroll down, right? And then here is your API access, and you're going to click create or generate a new API token. I've already done that, and I've already filled that out here within Xano. But if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now, and go ahead and paste it in there. All right, so the next thing that we need is the members collection ID. So let me go back to the designer. And, while I fast forwarded to that marketplace template, I also deleted the members table so I could do it with you over here. So here in the CMS collection, I want to go ahead and add a new collection, and I'm going to call this members. Now, this basically is going to keep in sync with MemberStack and with Xano all of the members that are being created in the system. And it's just best practice, because if we want to do something in Webflow that communicates back with these systems, we want to share a unique ID that goes across all three platforms. So I'm going to call this members, and then it automatically has a name and a slug. I want to go ahead and add a couple fields. I'm going to add first name. Okay, so I'm going to save this field. Then I'm going to add another field. I'm going to call it last name, and I'm going to save this field. And then finally, I'm going to add in an email address. Where are you? Email. There we go. Email. All right. So I'm going to add those three fields, and then I'm going to go ahead and create the collection. But remember, we need to get that ID, that collection ID from here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and then I'm going to go back into Xano, right? And so in this Webflow member CMS, I'm going to paste with this new one over here. So I just now have everything that I need for Webflow. The final thing is this MemberStack API key. So I get that actually by going to MemberStack, and I go to Power-Ups, and I go to Integrations. And then here in Integrations, I go to Custom Integrations here at the bottom. It's going to take me to the developers page, and I've already created this API key, but you're going to create a new one, get that API key, go back to Xano, and you're going to paste it in here, and then you're going to update, because now you have really everything that you need to make this successful. Okay, so now that we're completely set up here in Xano, there's one thing that I forgot to do, and I always forget to do, which is back in Webflow, we want to publish this site now that we've added a new collection. Otherwise, Xano or MemberStack won't know that it exists. So now that we have this here, all we have to do is let's save this collection, 0 members, no problem. And let's go back to the designer. And then here, I'm going to go ahead and publish this. Okay, so now this is published fully with that new member thing that we set up. Okay. So back in Xano, if we go to the database tables, you'll see that 3 tables have been created. We have, first of all, the member table, right? And this member table basically is going to store all of the users that get you sign up through MemberStack. Now, you're not going to have any of this. It'll be an empty table for you. We just did that as an example. But if you then go to the plan table, you're going to see the different plans associated with your MemberStack account. This has basic and premium, but you might have different plans. So the best thing to do is to go back to MemberStack and you go to your memberships. And what you're going to want to do is, based on the plans that you have, here mine is basic and mine is premium, you're going to go to this sign up link. And you're going to copy the last part, which is just the ID of the specific plan. So basic, I'm going to copy this. And then when I copy that, I'm going to go back to Xano and I'm going to fill it in here. So that is the basic plan. And then here, I'm going to do the same thing with premium, right? I just take this part right here and I want to copy that. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste it in there. Okay. So I have those two things, and that really just says, okay, for the basic plan, it's going to include items 1 through 4. And for the premium plan, it's going to include items 5 and 6. So where are we getting this? As I mentioned before, we're getting it from the item table. And the item table, again, has everything from a puppy to a yacht. Items 1 through 4 is for basic, and the car and the yacht is for premium, right? So I have that all set up. Okay, so now that's all there. I have everything in Xano more or less ready to go. So the first thing now, after I've done this in MemberStack, the next thing that I want to do is actually go into settings, and I want to go into webhooks. So basically we're going to say, when a new member gets created, go ahead and let Xano know so Xano can do all of the background stuff that links everything together. I'm going to delete this because that's the one that I had, and I'm going to go back into Xano. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to go to the API. You're going to want to go into this group right over here, and then you're going to go to this MemberStack member post. So this basically is the API endpoint that does a bunch of commands when a MemberStack member is created. So I'm going to copy this URL right over here. I'm going to go back into the webhooks. I'm going to add a new webhook. I'm going to copy this endpoint, and then I'm going to click new member. So basically call this when a new member is created. I'm going to save the webhook right here. Okay, so that's all done and we're ready to go there. Let's go back to Xano to just let you know, you don't need to write this yourself, but I just want to show you what's happening. When a MemberStack member is created, it fires to this API endpoint. Xano takes all of the input or the payload coming in from MemberStack. It then goes to Webflow and it creates a user or a member using into this member CMS. Where is it? Right over here. It's going to create a member in here based on the information that it's getting from MemberStack. It's then going to take that unique ID that I showed you earlier from Webflow, and it's then going to pass it back to MemberStack. So MemberStack stores it. Let's go over here. Do I have anything in members? No, I don't. Oh yeah, I do. This is the test one that I did. You see this Webflow member ID? It's going to store it in there. And then afterwards, it's going to create that member in Xano's database. And then it's going to sync the items from the items table into that member ID. And if you didn't want the item sync, you could just hit this eyeball and it wouldn't run this. But I do actually want this. So again, when the member gets created, it's going to assign all of those items in this field right over here. Okay, so now that we've gotten everything all set up within Xano and MemberStack, what we're going to do is go into Webflow. So like I said before, I use the MemberStack template to get all of this set up. And the main benefit is that if I go into my pages, it automatically does the sign up form for me. It does the login. It sets up all the forms. Once again, if you do not know how to do that, just go to this linked below series from Mackenzie Child, and in video 1 and 2, he will explain everything in great detail. I'm going to assume that you already have that set up. The part that we are really going to care about here is this account home basic. And this is basically the page that a user sees when they log in to their specific plan. So there are two paths that they can take. they can either take Account Home Basic or they can do Account Home Premium. So those are the two pages that we are going to edit. So for Account Home Basic, it's a simple page that just says, welcome, their first name, and it says thanks for being basic. Now for this variable right here, this is being loaded in from MemberStack first name. You can see the custom attribute. But we want to display a list of items that this user owns here in this little div or this little grid, okay? So you see this API data goes here. So there's a whole tutorial on how you can display data from an external API into Xano. You can actually follow that entirely just right over here. If you go to Xano-API, again, I'll link this all in the description. If you go down, there's a whole video and tutorial of how you do this. Basic summary is what you want to do is in Webflow, you create a element on the page. You assign it an ID like cards container. And you're just basically telling Webflow, hey, this is the container that I want all of my API data to live in. Then you're going to take a sample card or a sample element. So I'll show you that here, that basically the API is going to use to style every single result it's getting back from Xano. I'm not going to go through that in detail in this video. Like I said, I will link the tutorial on how to do that below. But basically, this is where you set up your API data. The part that I will go through in detail is the JavaScript that you're going to put on this page. So if you go to the page, and this is Account Home, by the way, I'll click on Edit Page Settings. And I want to go all the way down to the bottom over here. And you're going to see this before body tag. And I've already put in the code right over here. But let me actually walk you through what it's doing. So this is the JavaScript. So the first thing that it's doing is it is taking an endpoint, an API endpoint from Xano to get all of the items belonging to a member. So let's go to Xano and see what that looks like. If I go to API over here and I open this group, and if I go down to the endpoint items of a member, this is the anatomy of that endpoint. It basically takes the Webflow member ID, which I've mentioned before. When you create the MemberStack member, it gets synced with Webflow, it gets stored in Xano, and we basically pass that into this endpoint. It then goes to the database table of item, and it returns all items of that Webflow member. So that's what that's doing, okay? So if I go back to if I go back to the code, that's the endpoint I'm using, and I got that endpoint again by going here and clicking endpoint URL. Just copy that, and you can paste or replace that line here. So if I'm in Webflow page settings, you're going to replace that line with your endpoint. Okay, so back to the code. The first thing that it's saying, it's basically creating a function, which is the set of operations that I'm going to walk you through, and then it's firing that function when the page loads, or 250 milliseconds after the page loads, and I'll tell you why in a second. But let's go through and see what's happening. So first, this is going to search for Webflow member ID, which is a hidden element on the page. So if I go into my Webflow, let's go back to this account home page, you'll notice that under this heading, I have a hidden div, right? And a div, again, you just go to add elements, you add that div. And here, I'm gonna remove the hide. You can see that I load it with data-ms-member equals Webflow-member-ID. So you might ask, okay, well, what is that? So that if you go to MemberStack and you go to Forms and Fields, if I click here, notice that's exactly what this is. Add this attribute to your custom form. So I say this is the name and this is the value, okay? So back in Webflow, that's what I have on the settings block. I've added that here, and I am going to then label it as the ID, Webflow member ID. So I'm gonna re-hide this. So I'm gonna go here because I don't want the Webflow ID to show up on the page. Basically, the JavaScript is just using that, referencing it by ID to pass into the search parameters of this endpoint. Remember in Xano, it takes that Webflow member ID. Okay, so then it just basically says, I'm going to open an API request. I'm going to take this string along with the parameter of that Webflow member ID, and then it's basically going to store the response as data, okay? So it basically is going to parse it and store it as data. Then it says if the request is successful, then go ahead and go to this card container, which is basically, let me go back to Webflow. That's over here. Remember, I called this card container. It says use that container as the thing we want to inject all of the data into. We're going to go through each one of the items. So data is, remember, that response from the API. We go through each one called item. And then what we do is we take that sample card. Remember I told you in here we have that sample card that's hidden. We use that sample card just for its style, and we basically load an image into the image part, an H3 into the H3 part, and the paragraph or the description into that description part. So just to be clear, if I remove this hide tag over here, you can see there's the image, heading, and description. The API is just injecting all of the data here over and over. Okay, so I'm gonna add that back in. So it's doing that, it's putting it back into that container, and then it's sending out the request. The reason why we wait 250 milliseconds is because we want that Webflow ID to be loaded from MemberStack before we run this JavaScript. Now, it happens also fast. The JavaScript gets loaded fast, and sometimes it doesn't always catch it. So we're just saying, wait 250 milliseconds before you load this so we can make sure we use that Webflow member ID to load it into here to get all of the results of the user that just signed up, okay? So once we do all of that, and we go to the page settings, and let's see, we go to the bottom, and we paste in that, that script. Again, I'm gonna give you the JavaScript so you can basically just copy and paste that in between the two script tags. So you would paste it in between here, and make sure to just replace this with your API endpoint. And then after you're done, you just click save, okay? So now that that's done on the basic, we're gonna go ahead and publish this. And if all works properly, I should be able to sign in and see what I saw when I first demoed this to you. So I'm going to go to the sign up page. I want to go to basic because that's what I loaded it on. I'm just going to say Prakash Chandran, prakash@email.com, and I'll do password 123. I'm going to click I agree. I'll click continue. Oh, that was my test account. So let's do prakash@email2.com. Okay. And I'll hit continue. It's going to do the Stripe confirm. Okay, so hi Prakash, welcome to basic. So then I'm going to say, take me to the basic account. Remember, that is account home basic right over here. So that's why we're clicking here. It's going to load that Webflow ID, wait 250 milliseconds, and then load all of this information. So basically, just to summarize, what happened is we signed up on the Webflow site. It then went to MemberStack, and it created this member. Where are you? There we go. So here's that new member with the Webflow ID. Then what happened is, and by the way, Xano is coordinating all of this. So it took that MemberStack member, created it in Webflow. So again, let's go to Webflow. I can see here that that member's been created. Then what is it doing? It's updating that MemberStack with the Webflow ID, and then it's syncing all of the membership items in Xano's table so we know what to pass back to Webflow to get these items. And if we go to Xano and we click on the member table, we should be able to see there's Prakash, there's the member Webflow ID, and there are all of the different items here, okay? So now that that's done, pretty straightforward, we just do the same thing with the premium page. So we're gonna click here. We can actually copy the JavaScript exactly because we're not doing anything special. MemberStack is handling all of the logic to show this premium page. So we go to Account Home Premium, we click this, and this is already here, but I will just paste it in. And I'm gonna click Save. And so then if I publish this, if I go back to this basic plan, I'm gonna click Profile and I'm gonna click Log Out. I'm going to sign up again, get started. I'm going to go premium. And then this time I'm just going to say premium member. I'll say premium@email.com, and I'll do password 123, and I'll hit I agree, continue. I'll close this, confirm the dummy Stripe integration. Hi premium, welcome to premium. Let's go to Xano. Let's see, I'll refresh this. Yep, there it is, premium member. Everything's there. I have 2 items, which means that if I go to my premium account, I should see just the yacht and the car. So yeah, there you go. So now we are getting presented different sets of data based on your membership tier. This is all being connected together in Xano. So again, we use Webflow for the website, MemberStack to do the sign up and auth, and then Xano to just stitch everything together. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you for sticking with me. I'm going to have links to everything below in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.